Floyd. Larry, I have a stat for you here, and I
Okay.
wonder if this qualifies as a finisher. The final 8 games of the season for Leonard Floyd last year with the Buffalo Bills, including the 2 playoff games, Pittsburgh and Kansas City. How many sacks do you think Leonard Floyd had?
In how many games?
The final 8 games of the season. So the second half, if you will, the finishing stretch, if you will.
Maybe 4.
Yeah, he had 1, and it was a fluke against the Dallas Cowboys.
Wow.
1 sack.
But he's also, for the year, had at least 9 in 4 straight years.
He did. He indeed had 10.5 sacks this past season, and 2.5 of them came against the Jets. 2 came against Washington. 2 came against Jacksonville, and another 1.5 against the Jets for good measure. So when he was playing the Jets, he did about half of his total.
Well, they won. I'm sure they won by, good amounts. I mean, that's the thing. Pass rush and sack is the most overrated stat there is, because it's predicated on game situations. And it's also predicated on, if you're really, really, really good at you almost have to surprise offenses if you're going to get lots of sacks.
Mm-hmm.
The guys who produce big time sacks, they're going to keep a back in. They're going to chip. They're going to double. I mean, if you let Nick Bosa, who missed your 18.5 sacks 2 years ago,
right,
live in your backfield, you're a fool. You're a fool. Especially, we saw it in the playoffs. Kansas City just went to like no step drops. They didn't even.
Right.
I mean, how many times did they drop 7 steps? Once.
Well, then Larry, let's play the pass rush game. So let's go weeks 12 through 18, Leonard Floyd. And I know PFF isn't perfect, but let me just read off the pass rush scores in the final 6 weeks of the regular season. Then I'll flip over to playoffs. We're talking 58-4, 55, 59, 48, 57, 50. He wasn't there last year. And it stands up with the argument that I've heard from my friends who are Buffalo Bills fans, because, again, I run with a really weird crowd. They're like, you can have him. Because when we needed him most, and this team didn't have a pass rush last year, he was persona non grata. They stopped playing him in the game against Kansas City in the playoffs. He was nowhere to be found. And I just wonder if Leonard Floyd, who has put in an incredible career in the NFL, if the second half of last year was somewhat of the swan song of him being the productive, consistent player that we knew him to be. Because we know that, when it goes, in the NFL, especially at a high athleticism position, when it goes, it just goes. It goes immediately. It goes fast. You fall off a cliff.
It does, but I mean, this is also a technique-rich position where, if you look at, the last 35 years of the NFL, there's been a lot of guys late in their career that have really piled up sack totals. Yep. The Niners used to have them all. I mean, if you're a Niner fan, you remember Chris Dolman, Tim Harris, Kevin Green, Richard Dent. I mean, Ricky Jackson. They all rolled in and played for the Niners at one point or another. So they're, I'll take the veteran pass rusher. Heck, I think Von Miller is a shadow of what he was. But if Buffalo wants to get rid of Von Miller at the end of camp, I'd take Von Miller right now and roll the dice. I hear what you're saying. Everybody's got a shelf life, but I also think, you're talking about some incredibly cold weather games that they're playing at home in the end of the year in Buffalo. It's not conducive to rushing the passer. It's not conducive to passing. So there's a lot of run games. I'd love
they're
to.
At the Chargers, they're at Miami. Wasn't there either.
Yeah. No, but I mean, Leonard Floyd has been. I'll say this. Based on what he looked like in minicamp, he looked like a ton. Yeah. He absolutely was flying around and looked like a. To me, he doesn't look like a player his age. He looks like a player that's 3 or 4 years younger. But we'll see. We'll see. They're putting a lot on him. To me, that's the finisher. That and now you put him opposite Nick Bosa. I think it helps both of them. To me, it's the success of Leonard Floyd is totally going to be predicated on. How much success do the Niners have playing Yatir Gross-Matos on first and second down? Can they spot Leonard Floyd correctly? Leonard Floyd, I think at this point, is a guy that has to be spotted correctly. Otherwise, he's not going to give you as much.
Well, and it's interesting because when they signed Leonard Floyd, my gut reaction was, oh, no, I can't believe they did that, because I had heard so much from folks that watch the Bills specifically about Leonard Floyd. Apropos of nothing, they're like, "Can you believe this Leonard Floyd guy?" So I wasn't coming in from a non-neutral spot from a neutral spot. So I go, it can't be that bad. It can't be that bad. So I started asking folks around the league that I trust, like, what is Leonard Floyd's role on the 49ers, you think? Like, is he a first and second down guy where you're dealing with the technique and he's got the long arms and he's just going to set the edge and do really smart things and make Nick Bosa's life easier because you got to certainly, commit something to him on the line and maybe even bring in somebody to chip him? Is he that kind of guy who's going to help with the run, or are they going to use him as a situational pass rusher? Because let's be real about this. Leonard Floyd's days as a 3-down dynamo have been over long before he went to Buffalo. And it was really interesting. I would say that I talked to 6, maybe 7 people about this, and it was right down the middle. No one could tell me if he was first and second down or third down. And while you can appreciate that, hey, maybe that means he can do both and that, there's nothing to be lost on either side. I did find it interesting, especially when folks with the 49ers couldn't give me a straight answer, and they were giving me 2 different answers about what Leonard Floyd is supposed to be. So I'm with you on Yetur Gross-Matos. I find him very intriguing. Again, I'm ready to eat. He's
a passing down situational rusher. Right?
Is that what you
that's
think?
It.
He's your third down.
Oh,
guy?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I don't think he's a base guy. I think Matos and Floyd are a combo. Matos is first and second down and obvious run downs. Floyd is there for third downs and second half, passing downs.
And that might put him in a position to succeed. I agree with you. Leonard Floyd looked very good at minicamp. That's not pads. I always have a hard time pushing too hard when we don't have pads for contact positions like, defensive line positions. But I'm ready to take a lot of abuse and hatred in the first 2 months of the season when Leonard Floyd comes out here and looks like a total ass kicker because he's fresh. He's got a full off season. He's in a situation where he's got good coaching. He's obviously got decent enough, and in one case, a spectacular defensive line mate. And Leonard Floyd just looks like he's been drinking from the fountain of youth. And I hope that everyone who comes at me for saying that I think Leonard Floyd isn't going to be a good pickup for the 49ers, everyone who comes at me in September and October has that same energy in November and December when Leonard Floyd is nowhere to be found again. I hope that they have.
I hope, that would be a bad sign. Why? Because I don't know outside of Bosa if they have a single defensive end that they can bank on. Drake Jackson, I love Drake Jackson, great guy, but he hasn't done it thus far. And Robert Beal Jr.'s, I'm dubious of guys that are big, strong, fast, and never play. And that's now starting to be kind of his situation. He didn't play at Georgia. He didn't really play with the Niners. So it's like, is he one of these guys that's a workout warrior, or can he actually play? And if neither of those guys can play, they're going to really need Floyd, to play a major role. I mean,